Good afternoon. I hope you guys are ready for another informative and rocking panel discussion. This time, we have two big names in both the digital marketing and in the retail world. So welcome, Donald. I didn't know you had a second name, Patrick.
Yeah, yung Dr. Patrick pag gusto ko maging gwapo. Dr. Patrick ang tawag.
And Menchie, of course, one of the new board directors of IMAP representing Ayala Malls this afternoon. So the theme for this panel is big names go digital. And the objective here is to really learn about the issues and challenges when a big retail or offline brand with dominant market share, what are the thoughts and issues these brands face when before you decide to plunge into this world of e-commerce and digital. So maybe we can start with Menchie. Can you tell us a little bit about Ayala 360?
Last year, around March of last year, we launched Ayala Malls 360. It's the Ayala Malls comprehensive digital program. Initially, it started off as an information push, including several touch points. We wanted to have a multi-channel approach to get information across to our customers. So it included revamping the website, having a mobile app, optimizing our site for mobile, being active in social, and also launching our e-commerce site. The underlying insight into getting Ayala Malls into Ayala Mall 360 or getting heavy into digital is really being able to database the over 1 million people who walk through our malls every day. So we have a lot of customers coming through our malls every day, but we really don't know who these people are. And we wanted digital to be a way to reach and get to know these customers as a sort of, to start on business intelligence, but also to move towards further engagement. So we wanted it multi-channel, so we cut across several touch points to reach our customers. So that's really why we started getting into Ayala Mall 360 digital program.
Was it difficult to convince each of your retail brands to agree to this?
It's an ongoing process. So we're a mall developer, so we work independently of the merchants, but we really put together the program with the merchants in mind. So we wanted, a lot of our merchants are not online or are not savvy in terms of digital. We wanted Ayala Malls 360 to be a platform for them. So it's more than a revenue generating project. It was a chance for us to reach out to our merchants. We know that not a lot of them have the budgets nor the expertise to put together a solid digital program. So we wanted them to get started through us. So it's a merchant support program. It's a constant hand-holding with the merchants, and it's a constant education as well. So we did a lot of merchant briefing, and we continue to do so, just to make sure that there is greater acceptance for this as a medium, as a channel.
Okay, how about we hear from the doctor, Donald. Donald, you've been at the helm of McCann's digital arm for 2 years now. And what are some of the challenges that you go through whenever you make a pitch and you try to convince the big brands of McCann or your prospects to go into e-commerce and digital?
Jack, when we were looking at digital marketing, even way back, if you look at the brands, their first mindset when you tell them internet has always been e-commerce, and this was like 10 years ago. Right? They felt that e-commerce was a selling platform rather than a advertising or a marketing platform. For them, digital advertising is used to be just placing ads, billboard ads, banner ads. And it has gone a long way only because of social networking, because of search. And it is only now that most of the brands think digital marketing as pure digital marketing. It is using it as a platform for communicating with consumers. But what we're seeing already today is that there is still a gap because in the end, all the brands would always be asking, how does it help contribute to our sale? So currently in McCann, I handle Coca-Cola, Nestle, Unilever, Unilab, San Miguel. I mean, all of these FMCGs always, now it's not hard already to convince them to go digital marketing. So if you show them a digital marketing plan, a media plan, they're okay with it already. So I think we don't need to convince them there anymore, but now they are asking the final question: how can you convert that to sale? And if you've looked at, even in the multinational segments, most of them are trying to struggle and find, pieces of the puzzle on how to mount an e-commerce store. No, some embarked on creating their online shop. Some tied up with group buying sites. Eventually, to each their own. But if you look at e-commerce, who is really the embodiment of successful e-commerce implementation for a consumer company? Wala pa eh, there's none, right? So I think that the industry as a whole should take that into consideration, because in the end, you have to look at the big brands. Again, I mean, Unilever, Nestle, Coke, all of them would want to reach to their customer directly, right? How can you create that kind of a platform to allow that for them to be able to do that, right? Because right now, most of the executions we're seeing is that the brand managers are asking us, can we, for example, experiment with some social commerce group buying sites? And I want to do a bit of sampling. Ganun lang eh. It's not really selling, right? But if you go to the very tail end metric, they would always ask, how can all of these, what we're doing, contribute to sale, right? The answer may not be creating an online shop, right? Because you have, it's an entire business altogether. But I think as an industry, we have to help the big brands when they go digital. How do we close the loop there, right? So currently, I don't think there is. I mean, for example, with Coca-Cola, they have parang reward points. So instead, when you buy a Coke in the US, you actually have a parang promo code where you input and you earn Coke points. But that's as e-commerce as you can get, right? But it's not really physically buying and having them delivered versus, for example, a Tesco in South Korea where they already have the use of a QR code, right? So I think we still have to grow our industry here.
Donald, is that because these traditional retail brands have lion's share of their revenue coming from offline? Is that part of the challenge?
I think if you look at today, the challenge for marketing has always been how do you increase sales and market share? And it would always be you have to introduce new product, you have to bring down your price. There are very traditional marketing strategies. But if you ask any marketing person, they would always appreciate a new channel. The thing is, most major brands, when they want to go into e-commerce, there's really not a lot of leg room to fail. I think some would want a bit of experimentation, but in the end, they still have their marketing tasks to do. So, in the end, if we can offer a big solution for them, I think everyone would jump into it. But what is that remains to be seen, right?
How about you, Mench, in terms of the context of what Donald has said? You have a slightly different challenge because you have hundreds of mall tenants and merchants. Some not so big, some pretty big names, but a big chunk of their sales are still offline. A big chunk of their costs are also associated with the rent of Ayala malls. But here you are trying to evangelize the e-commerce world. How do you balance your own business, which is lease revenue, with getting them to sell online?
I guess we just wanted to be available through a multi-channel platform, with offline and being in a mall being one of the channels. We see it in the US that the big malls, the big stores are folding up, closing shop. And although it's not happening here in the Philippines, we know that with the rise of e-commerce, this is something that may eventually happen. And we're quite mindful of that. That's why we want to establish a play into e-commerce this early, just to be able to address that as a concern in the coming future. The challenge with merchants is that, especially for the bigger brands, is that they can't do much of online selling because of their principals. So that's a challenge for the bigger brands, the top foreign brands. For the smaller brands, I think it's more of the margins whenever they work with certain deal sites. So what I'm trying to say is that we created an e-commerce platform through A-Deals for Ayala Malls as a foot in the door into e-commerce. We see e-commerce growing, and we would like eventually to grow this bigger. A-Deals as a deal site is just the start. We want to grow this further, and the deal site as a platform is the lowest hanging fruit. It's an easy and familiar platform that a lot of our customers already know.
So
but we eventually would like to get into it in a bigger way. In fact, we are about to launch an evolution of A-Deals called A-Weddings, where we turn the mall into a big wedding registry. So that's an evolution of the deal site that we started on last year.
So adeals.com is the deal
E-commerce
site
site, yeah. Basically
for all Ayala Mall
Ayala
tenants.
Malls.
Do you require them to be part of adeals.com?
it's not a requirement. We never require anything. We're not the type of landlords, no. So we encourage our merchants. We give them good incentives to be part of this program. We provide sufficient marketing support. So it's a way to encourage them to participate in the program. We don't tell them to not join any other deal site because this is their business, and we want them to be as robust as possible in terms of their participation in the e-commerce
So
space.
not required, not exclusive. Do you share in the revenue sold?
A-Deals is a partnership. So we have a partner with we partnered with a group of My Regalo for the execution of A-Deals, and there is a revenue percentage, but it goes entirely to the system that makes this possible.
What are some of the more common reasons why a brand of Ayala Malls would not want to plunge into e-commerce? What's the most common reason?
E-commerce or deal sites?
Well, either one.
It's really the margins. Most of the issues that, or the primary issue that is raised every time we meet with merchants talking to them about A-Deals is really the commissions, the margins that they have to sacrifice for them to join. That's why the way we position A-Deals is that we don't just necessarily ask for discounts, because there are other ways to be competitive in this market. We have introduced what we call bundled offers, because the mall is such a rich place for creating varied experiences. So we could bundle movies plus shopping plus dining and put it together into a packaged product. Not necessarily discounted, but it makes it easier for our customers to have a unique Ayala Malls experience. Or we can bundle our events with dining, so it becomes like a date of sorts. No? So we focus more on how we can build experiential offers to our customers.
Donald, what about examples from your brands or maybe some of the rival mall operators in the country?
Actually, we've seen currently some of the brands, they're looking at, I want to jump off from what I said earlier. Some of them are experimenting on e-commerce, but again, how do we define e-commerce? Because some, for example, like Kellogg's in the UK, they created what is called a tweet shop, right? So you pay by tweeting. So it's what you call the rise of social currency, where instead of giving you the product and you pay for that product, they ask for your social currency. So you tweet, and once you tweet and it comes out in the screen, so they will see it that you've tweeted about the product, then they give you the product. So we're seeing already some shift from the marketing side, where they don't give away sampling anymore. There is a value to where you play socially. So if the people who tweet have a higher clout, they actually get more products, right? So we're seeing a move from the fast-moving consumer goods experimenting with that, and of course. We're not at that level yet, no. But again, like a Coca-Cola would have not Coke, but one of their sister brands, same execution, vending machine. You tweet, and then the drink would come out. So these are what you can find in YouTube where they execute something like that. No? And again, this is more marketing rather than e-commerce. But what we're saying is that social currency is becoming more and more important today in the age of social. In the Philippines, it's still we're still, I think, a bit backward. No, so again, like most fast-moving consumer goods, we're still working with a lot of group buying sites. So we're more creative with the execution. We want to be where everything is tried and tested, right? And of course, I don't know if you tackled this earlier, but of course, the challenge, the biggest barrier of e-commerce, still payments. I mean, the number of credit card, the number of debit card users aren't that high. So when your universe is only this much, you can only do so many things, right? And be creative with the payments. But we've gone a long way for the past 10 years. But I think if you want to look at the big money, right? If the total e-commerce market today is around 1 billion US, but it's like 1 billion US is airlines, eh? No, when you look at total online transaction. So, and then around 5% of that is just the social commerce, the group buying sites. So it's still at its infancy, and this e-commerce, it's still at its infancy. Something we've been telling each other for the past 3 years, and that's why I think we have to make, very very strong move, because the brands are waiting, right? They're waiting for platforms. They're waiting for us to really show them what how they can close that loop, because they've been doing a lot of marketing, and in the end, the CEOs are always asking what's in the end, did you make a sale after that?
But is there some recognition, Donald, that we have a very young population, over half of our country is below the age of 21, increasingly spending most of their time online, not using or consuming traditional media. But isn't this a compelling enough reason to get them closer to going digital in terms of selling?
I think it is. I think that's why I think all companies are really planting seeds today, right? So if you ask, for example, I think Ayala is doing very well. I mean, they planted a lot of seeds already. The other retail group, I think, is also planting some seeds, right? So I think there is eventually in all segments, not only in the retail segment, but everywhere, there is a race towards who can crack the e-commerce.
But how serious? I mean, I know Ayala is serious. Menchie is driving that. But this other retail group, I think we know who you're talking about, Donald. How serious are they? Because they're all over the country. They have 45 malls. Are they really serious?
There are snippets of anecdotes that we get as an industry, right? And katabi ko eh. Sampalin ako. I have to be very PR with my answer. So there are snippets of anecdotes that we usually get. No? And sometimes when you ask them, they always, I would think they're still a bit backward in many cases. And if they're here,
I haven't seen any.
Because for one, they told me na for example, I think the only one who went e-commerce was a toy store and the appliance, right? And they told me, like, this is a year and a half ago, so I don't know today. But a year and a half ago, when someone ordered a refrigerator who's in Davao, they had to get the inventory from Manila and ship it there, when that ref is existing in that Davao outlet. Right? So it's still a bit crude.
So their back end is not yet geared for e-commerce.
And I think maybe that's hard for if you're a retail department store, is because when you created your back end, it was really for the offline. When online comes in, you then are in a quandary. Do you recreate a new one, or how do you integrate one? And in many cases, your current back end is not really fit for online, right? So now you are in that big question. When do you really start investing? Right? When do you create something from scratch, or how do you really integrate everything into that? So even the biggest mall would have that question, right, today. I mean, if you look at maybe the Walmarts, the big ones, right, you can still say that they're not the master of e-commerce. It's still Amazon, who is just purist when it comes to e-commerce, right? They're the most successful because they started their business and you cross the e-commerce bridge, you burn that bridge and said, I will be an e-commerce outlet. Right? And that's why they were successful. But it took them some time before, they lost a lot of money in the first few years before they eventually become successful today.
One of the themes that has emerged in this summit so far is that even if it's early days, it's beginning to be evident that to be truly successful and to be able to scale, one's e-commerce business, you need to control more than one piece of the value chain or the ecosystem. Would you agree with that? And I would think that traditional retailers have a big leg up since they already have, the warehousing and the physical presence.
I always believe that the internet is the biggest equalizer, right? And if you believe in the long tail, anyone can go up against even the biggest retailer, right? In fact, over the weekend, 2 weekends ago, I was approached by a retailer who is based in Naga and telling me, okay, parating na SM is coming, but I don't care. I'm going e-commerce, right? That's the mindset already. They know they can defend their front. They know they can, I want to create an e-commerce site for my region within my market and be #1 there. Because I know that even the massiveness of that big retailer coming in, I don't care, right? Because I want to own that segment. So you're seeing that they're thinking that way already. And at the same time, you're thinking also that, these are 25, 30-year-old second generation, trying to learn their father's business. And they're also saying that I want an online tiangge. I want to empower all my region people, right, to go up against any big one coming in because we are able to establish our online presence already. So it's not, they don't envision to be an Amazon of the Philippines. Amazon of Naga lang nga eh, right? And they're happy with that. They want to defend their turf, right? And e-commerce was their response rather than creating more stores.
That's a great story. Mench, anything to add?
I think digital is really a great enabler in terms of how you can expand the reach of your brick and mortar space. So as small developers, as a physical space, we see a lot of room to grow in this business. At its current state, I think we're just really scratching the surface. And there's a lot to do, especially since we have the advantage of a physical space. So unlike other sites, e-commerce sites, we have a physical space that allows us to further engage our customers. So we would like to use that to our advantage and to constantly think about how else we can use a physical presence amplified by digital to really reach out to our customers to further engage them.
In fact, one of the success stories in Europe was really done by one of the supermarket chains, a product service called Click and Collect, wherein you actually click and order your groceries online and pick it up physically. So I think, there are certainly hybrid models out there that might work for a market like the Philippines. Let's now switch over to product categories, maybe, and would you believe in the statement that says that some product categories are made for e-commerce while others are not? I mean, we've heard of refrigerators, we've heard of items that are smaller. Is there such a thing, or do you think, Donald, that everything can be sold through digital commerce?
When we talk about e-commerce, for me, kasi, even when I consult for e-commerce, there has to be a clearly defined value why they go online. Sometimes, rightly or wrongly, when we sell something online, we had a notion that we have to give a discount so that people will buy. But in essence, the discount, the value we gave is already a convenience that people don't go. I was talking to the, I was talking to Rakuten. They were here 2 weeks ago, just interviewing people. It was going around, and I was telling them e-commerce is small here. I was telling them people research online, but they buy offline. And the 5 Japanese look at each other, and for some weird reason, they said, how can that be? That is so illogical. I said, why do you say that? Because they said, in Japan, we research offline, we go to the different stores, and buy online. So why would you go to a store to buy and bring it home when you can have everything delivered to you? Right? So, that's where they are. That's the other world, right? Where everything is so advanced, when for them, they have bullet trains and you can go to every retail shop and they compare prices and they feel it, right? So, that's what they said. I want to feel it first before I buy. So they feel it first. Once they feel it, they go online and buy, actually. So it's a bit of a reverse. But you were talking about still, Rakuten being the e-commerce, the Amazon of Asia. But they have that mindset already. right? So for them, they sell everything and anything from virtual goods to even, again, beds and refrigerators, right? I was talking to another Chinese e-commerce group, and in China, there's not a lot of digital marketing. So even when I talk to my Chinese counterparts, number one, they don't have Facebook, so basically everything is Weibo, right? And everything is e-commerce. They said, here, you can order a broom online, right? And have it delivered next day because the logistics is just, it's fully developed already. So everything, especially the next generation, you're having the entire young Chinese population just ordering everything online. That if they go to a store, it's like, why are you going to a store? And to think that these markets are some years ahead of us, but if we do get there, that would really be a very big paradigm shift to all of us, right? And the question is how we prepared ourselves for that.
Any comments? Menchie, it's a very interesting sort of comparison that Donald made.
I guess for the more developed countries, what happens is this phenomena called showrooming, where they go to the store, take a look at the product, have a feel of it, and decide to just buy online. It's a culture of price matching. But I think here in the Philippines, it's still more experiential. And and also in these developed countries, they are starting to realize that the shift of purpose for the physical space. So they are trying not to get into the price war, but more into creating a different kind of experience for their customers. So they boost their customer service, they increase engagement through promotions, through on-ground activities. So there are entertainment. So they try to use the physical space to complement their products and not go into a price matching game.
Kind of reminds me of Las Vegas, when over the past 2 decades, reinventing itself from just casinos to being a total entertainment capital. So it's probably timely to text in your questions, or if anyone is brave enough to go up to the mic and take advantage of this opportunity. I see.
Hi, Leia.
Hi, Leia.
Why do I always get nervous when Leia goes up?
You are? Sorry. No, because I know that there's a lot of press around mobile, right? I think it's very obvious from a retail standpoint for that to happen. What about mobile when it comes to commerce? What's your perspective, especially for FMCGs? I think there are a couple of FMCGs in this room. What about mobile when it comes to doing commerce?
I think even for the past year, all our FMCG clients would always say mobile, right? I think even from an agency standpoint, we would always want to be equipped with what is new. Technology is just moving so fast, right? And even from our end, we're having a hard time trying to catch up what's new, what's possible. In the end, like mobile, and I think it's also good that we get a mobile perspective from the mobile groups here. How can you harness e-commerce? How can you help all of these fast-moving consumer goods? Because like Coke, Unilever, Nestle, yun ang unang ano sa amin eh. What do you think can you execute in mobile? Because Philippines is mobile country.
But I guess as a follow-up to that, what's your wish list? Coming from an operator standpoint, it would be nice to hear what the perspective of an agency has, and even some of the marketers in the room. What's your wish list? Because from what I know of, at least from a retailer, the press release that was released by Ayala Malls, it was very smartphone driven. When you have, the market is still predominantly legacy phones, right? How do you use mobile in terms of commerce across, regardless of handset type?
For Ayala Malls, we're actually doing a two-pronged approach for mobile. We realize that smartphone usage is not as inclusive across all markets. That's why we're investing as well in SMS. That's one. The second is on mobile through smartphones. It's really making sure that we're out there in terms of having a fully optimized mobile site, investing in ads to push this mobile presence. In terms of a wish list, and hopefully we can do this for the malls, is how we can, through location-based perhaps, how we can inform our customers who are within a specific radius of the mall or within a certain kilometer about a specific offer that's ongoing right now. So it becomes more relevant, it becomes more urgent. But I guess with the adoption of smartphones as well as the broadband as well, we need to see that all these tools and technology will work towards having that kind of offering for our market. So yes, we're mindful of the majority of our market that don't have smartphones, and we choose to always be inclusive for both smartphone users and non-smartphone users.
Just to add to that, I agree with Menchie. From an agent standpoint, just like to add, we view mobile as an integrating device. So we're seeing a lot of executions, for example, that when you go to a store, your mobile will be prompted with what's the new offer here. Or how you can integrate mobile, like what we did in McCann, Hong Kong, like the Chok Chok execution in Coke, or mobile and then integrated with print, like QR, AR. So I mean, all of those. I think we would ask for more of that, because when a brand comes to us, they would always ask mobile not in itself, but how it would talk to other platforms and how it can be executed there.
Any other? Okay, we have a question from this side of the room.
Hi, I'm Diane from San Miguel Brewery. So recently, we've just launched our e-commerce site last December. So we're selling beer online. So you can log on to smbdelivers.com. So we can deliver to you within an hour. Or if you have plans for your birthday, we can also deliver draft beer to you. So anyways, so as big as San Miguel Brewery, just launching the website or the e-commerce site, how can we make the website or the e-commerce website go big? And should we market it through deal sites, or like what Ms. Leia have said, go into mobile applications or into mobile? And or should we take it slow and just take it slow?
Well, I think you shouldn't take it slow. Launch mo na, I think, and to answer your question, I don't even think it's one or the other. I think you should experiment on all the platforms and think and look at what gives you the most returns.
Okay.
I recommend that if you have a very clear target market in mind, I think wala naman mali na you market on Facebook, on search, in Google, do advertising, all of this, and once whatever gives you the most results, and just you work on those.
Okay.
Since even if you just launch it, so I think you should be very aggressive with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Sayang naman.
Yeah.
And buying beer online, while some people might say, sino bibili, but I think a lot will. Right? So
Yes,
I think it makes
that's
sense.
I hope it's 24-hour delivery.
Yes, it's 24 hours delivery.
Is it ice cold beer?
Yes. Ice cold, yes. And aside from ordering online, you can also text us or call our hotline. Yeah, thank you. It's 632 beer. Yeah.
I think we have a question from Jojo.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack. Dr. Donald, I realize I've been disrespecting you by just calling you Donald.
No, please. Please,
Anyway,
what?
Menchie. Can you comment on, obviously with the big brands, especially the FMCGs, they've got traditional partners, distribution partners, the supermarkets. How much of that, and obviously managing the channel conflict, is sort of getting in the way of maybe driving some of the volumes through e-commerce?
I think the channel conflict does not, and this is my opinion, does not yet exist, only because the volume is not that big yet. And I think the brands that we handle are number one, the marketing and the sales are two different departments, that's one. And the marketing always gets away with either it's a new product or they find an excuse to try out the social commerce route, right? To try out the e-commerce route. And I think what is very clear, even from the marketing, the sales, and even from the retailer end, I think, is that these multinationals would always have a mandate that this year, for the past 3 years, experiment with digital, try out new things. I've heard so many of the COs. I heard so many head of marketing who would tell me, I don't mind, just experiment so we can get we can get it right. So I think because the volume, maybe if the volume is so big already, there will be the channel conflict will arise. But I think even this year or next year, maybe not yet.
From our end, there really is no channel conflict because our e-commerce site, it's a drive-to-mall strategy. So you buy online and you just really go to the store to pick it up.
Thank you.
I think we have a couple more minutes left for this panel. So okay. What does that say? Oh, there's a text in question. Let me read it. Wow, it's a long one. I'm going to read this to you. Okay, you can read it. I'll rest. Okay, who wants to go first?
Loaded question. Well, it's always difficult to track sales. I mean, we've always been discussing even in digital marketing attribution. How do you attribute your sales to a particular channel, right? And even in marketing, it's very hard to do that unless when you execute on Facebook or on mobile, yung mobile coupons or Facebook coupons, then you can really 100% attribute it to that, right? With some of the brands we're doing, sometimes you just do nothing except you do digital, so you can attribute the spike in sales. But like to your question, I mean, in the end, it's always about having a comprehensive integrated marketing approach. So whether you are a big brand or a small brand, I would not even recommend you committing 100% of your marketing budget on digital, right? I always tell people when I talk to SMEs, even SMEs, when you do marketing, and again, this is my opinion, marketing is very good for close combat. When the person is there already, you try to use it as an engagement and you communicate. It is not good for long shots. Long shots where you talk about if the consumer is still far from you, when the awareness is low, you still need the other platforms to help you. TV, radio, print, all the other platforms. Bring them in and let digital do what it does best, which is all about the engagement. Bring them in and they close the loop there, right? So you still need, I mean, every marketing platform, every marketing channel. It cannot be just put everything on digital and you try to attribute everything in digital. I think that's, you would be disappointed. I mean, I had some brands na, okay, I will put all my digital budget to you, let's see how good you are. And I will always say, I mean, I'd be scared to say, give me all your budget. Because in the end, you might get disappointed. You might, especially if your brand is new, I think you still have to do a lot of awareness drivers and you need above the line to help you with that.
I fully agree with what Donald said, that it's quite a challenge to measure all the channels, especially if you're coming from a traditional company doing a lot of traditional advertising where the metrics aren't as precise. In terms of the question of what do we measure, it really depends on your objective. It's not just about clicks. It depends on the platform even, the type of execution that you do, and the objectives or ROI that you need to reach per objective. On the first question on whether to do it in-house or to outsource it, it depends on whether you have the manpower to do everything in-house, because it's really, digital seems simple especially to people who don't know a lot about digital, but it really takes a lot of time. So from my experience, we do a hybrid. It's co-managed, so we do have our digital agencies. We have our mobile agency as well. But we also do rely on our in-house team, our digital task force, in terms of social, in terms of engagement. So it's a mix of both.
Great, thank you. There is another text in question. I'll read it this time. I hope it's shorter. In digital commerce, what do people buy into first? The marketplace or the products being sold? Should the sellers promote the products or the marketplace? What do people buy into first? Products or the marketplace? And what should sellers promote?
I think it's both. From our perspective, the reason why people go to our e-commerce site is because it's a trusted site. It's run by a trusted brand, and if anything goes wrong, there's a physical space or a physical presence that will be constantly there to receive customer complaints, to receive customer service concerns. And but we also believe that the products that we put online really push our or scale our usage, or is a primary reason for the visit. So that's why it's good if you have a very robust set of offerings, more than the usual restaurants and salons, spa, etc.
I think I agree. I think when you talk about e-commerce, it's all about trust. So for me, if I were to spend my marketing budget, it will be building the credibility of my e-commerce site first. Once the credibility is there, but if you don't have good products, then people go there and then they leave. So you still have to make sure that you have good product offerings so that they try you out. So it's going to be like what mentioned. No, it has to be both. But the most important thing for me is about generating the trust, right? And you have to invest money and tenure there.
Certainly, one of the takeaways of the conference is really this issue of trust. And you know, when I was growing up, you know, a common term would be caveat emptor, buyer beware. But I think this, you know, the digital environment has really made the saying caveat venditor equally relevant, which is seller beware also, because the need for transparency, fairness, and honesty in a merchant is equally important. So, is there any last remaining question from the floor? I have one last one for both Menchie and the doctor. You know, we look at the traditional marketing funnel. You know how that works, right, Donald? But I was just curious. How does the internet really change that? How that funnel looks like? You know, because everything you say that the internet kind of levels the playing field. And what are the implications of that in terms of engagement, all the way down to the purchase decision?
Well, for me, if you look at the funnel, no, awareness, interest, desire, and taking action, meaning either to buy, to inquire, or to do other things, that is the most fundamental of marketing, and I don't think that will change. No, a lot of us in digital before, we used to think that we were the experts, and that the internet would be able to do all of that, right? Giving awareness, creating that interest, desire, and action. But like what I said earlier, no, for me, in the internet, in my experience now, after going through so many campaigns, it's at its best at the bottom. You need to use other drivers first to bring them into your website. You have to build credibility to the website, and eventually, that's when you start engaging them, right? If you lose them there, then there's no purpose. I mean, you can do all the awareness, you can do a lot of Facebook, Yahoo ads, Google search, all of that awareness measures, right? Drive them to your site, but that will not give you the sale. It would still be at the end. You have to be able to close that sale, and that is where you should be at your best, right?
Correct. And you know, in the arena of digital entrepreneurs, where we don't have the big budgets of some of the traditional advertisers, that is even more critical, because you don't have as many bullets. So you want to allocate those bullets to where the action is, which is at the bottom.
With digital, I think, especially looking at that funnel, there is a growing challenge for a multi-channel approach. I understand that not all businesses can invest heavily into a multi-channel approach, but it really boils down in terms of what your key objective is and what platforms are most relevant to reach those objectives. So if you're a small player and you really can't afford to put together an app or a mobile site, maybe SMS or email marketing. So digital is rich in terms of tools that we as marketers can use to reach our customers, either as a giant, as a big brand, or as an SME.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, Dr. Patrick, thank you very much. At least you have a second identity.